Okay, we call this regular meeting of the Ottawa City Commission. It's Wednesday, March 4th, 7 o'clock. Would the clerk call the roll?
Mayor Whitehan,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler,
Present.
Commissioner Crowley,
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present. All commissioners are present. We welcome those who are attending in the building as well as watching us on Facebook Live and other media. With that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for Pastor Todd Miller to give the invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you guys for having me come here today. It's always an honor to be here with you all, and it is an honor to ask the Holy Spirit to come and fill you all and guide you. We read through Scripture that all the great leaders asked for His guidance, and here you are doing that. So we thank you so much for that. So let's bow. Heavenly Father, we do seek you. During this time, we seek you to infill these leaders with your wisdom. Help them to guide and make decisions for this city. What a wonderful city it is. And it's because they keep asking you that for guidance that they can make this city this good. We thank you for this leadership and everything they've done. Continue to bless them and bless this city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you being here. With the consent agenda includes the minutes from the January 27th and the February 3rd study sessions. Is there a motion to approve or discuss those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
All right.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Are there any public comments?
No one's registered.
No one's registered, so we'll dispense with reading that. And then a declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Being none. New business.
Presentation of Master Municipal Clerk Certification to Amy Finch, City Clerk.
Dana McPherson, IMC, that's the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, President and City Clerk for DeSoto, Kansas, will present the certificate to our City Clerk.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. I am Lana McPherson. I am a fellow City Clerk of Amy's from the City of DeSoto, and also the International Institute of Municipal Clerks President this year, which has been a great honor, being from a small town in Kansas, to be on the international stage of about 15,000 clerks worldwide. It's really an honor to come and recognize a fellow Kansas clerk. Currently, we only have 37 master municipal clerks in Kansas. Total internationally, including U.S. and all of the 15 countries that we represent, we have 1,376 total master municipal clerks. So you can see that your clerk is among one of the many prestigious clerks. So, and I know that Misty's coming up here. She's working an institute now at Wichita State and working on her certified municipal clerk. And clerks like me, we appreciate having city managers and commissioners, city councils who appreciate what we as your city clerk do, because when you allow us to attend institute, you allow us to learn. We not only network with other clerks, but we're taught the latest and the greatest things that is going on in city government all across the United States. And we learn that, we bring it back, and we try to impart that to all of you to make our cities the best they can be. I had asked Mr. Neinstead if he would pass out a little paper to you about 5 ways your municipality benefits, and I'm not going to take time. You can all read that. But if you're aware, when you go to the League of Kansas Municipalities, or if you're out to some of the other functions, you may hear about someone trying to hire a new city clerk, and they're looking for that certification now. When I started 21 years ago, that wasn't quite the big thing, but councils and mayors and city managers are learning that when that CMC or that MMC is after that person's name, they know their stuff. So one of the best things of my job is coming home to Kansas and being able to pin this awesome Master Municipal Clerk on Miss Amy Finch. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
So just as something funny, that when I started an institute 21 years ago, I was the oldest clerk in my class and had the gray hair to prove it. So in that time frame, by the time the first day was over, everyone was calling me Clerk Mom. And you know what? It stuck, and it's a title that I treasure, and this is one of those reasons why. As soon as I could get this thing, yes, doesn't want to come. These are hard to earn, so they make sure that we don't lose them. Goodness. All right. That's brand new. So there we go. It's a little stiff. All right. On behalf of IIMC and all of your fellow clerks, we are proud of you, and your clerk mom is extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
I know you've worked hard to do that. So. You can get that on there.
Okay.
And so we hereby confer the designation of Master Municipal Clerk upon Amy Finch, MMC, in fulfillment of requirements prescribed by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. Congratulations. My pleasure. Thank you. I apologize. We had another clerk that came to support Amy tonight. And Betty, would you stand up? She's a city clerk in Pomona, Kansas, and so she came out this evening. We kind of like to do that, but many of us had other council meetings tonight. So. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk first, all right? Here, you can stay right there. So I can't tell you how proud I am of Amy, but let me just tell you this little anecdote about how important city clerks can be to careers. So I was on my first job 40 years ago. I was a graduate student out of Wichita State. We had a little and if this person's watching, she'll remember this. But we had a little situation in the office which I tried to handle, and it went kind of like, it was pretty disastrous. So the city clerk says to me, so I'm telling the city clerk this, she says, "Okay, big boy, are you ready for me to straighten this out for you?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "All right, I don't want to hear any more about the theory you learned in graduate school. I'm going to teach you how this really works." And she did. Because of her, I'm here today, and I think have some skills that set me well. So clerks are important. If you look in the Bible, the clerk office as a scribe is the only officer mentioned in the Bible. All right? Talks about the importance of scribes. But I want you to kind of understand what Amy's been working on. And she's been working on this since she got her municipal clerk certification in 2018. And she has submitted 387 combined education and experience hours towards this education. And some of those were from the KU CPM program, which is a Certified Public Management program. Some of those were from her Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and Management, and that was at OU, Ottawa University. And what I'm most proud of is that she was able to use 24 credit hours of her Master's in Public Administration from that great educational institution, Wichita State University, of which she will graduate, be awarded that degree this May. So it doesn't stop here. As she goes through her career, She has to take continuing education that are offered through the Master Clerks Academy each year, and she has to maintain that membership. But this is good for the city. This is good for our citizens, and this is good for Amy also, so I'm proud of you. So,
For the record, I do not call our city manager Big Boy, but I do appreciate, since I've been here, and I actually started working on my certified municipal clerk designation when I was assistant city clerk in 2011 to 13. So it's been a long process, but the city has been really wonderful. They always support and encourage education and being members of different organizations. We reach out a lot through our city clerk's listserv when we were working on establishing the land bank here. That's where we reached out and got a lot of other samples. So not only do we get education, but you get to network and utilize the expertise from other cities through that connection. So Richard, thank you, and Commission, thank you for always supporting and encouraging education and certifications and being members of professional organizations.
Well, Amy, I'm sure the commissioners are very proud of you for your perseverance over the years, as well as your work ethic and the knowledge you bring to help the city and help the commission get through. You've done a great job, and you'll continue in that, and we appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. There are, you didn't, and thank you for attending tonight, city clerks from DeSoto and Pomona. Appreciate that. And I'm not going to read it, but there are 5 ways the municipality benefits because of the certified or master municipal clerk, and I'll just read the 5 ways. The knowledge they have is current and relevant. They are more likely, more productive. Their best practices elsewhere can be effectively used in our municipality, and information can be shared with the entire municipality, and they demonstrate a commitment to their profession, and Amy certainly does that, and so thank you very much for being our city clerk.
Thank you.
With that, we have item 11.
Proclamation recognizing March 2nd through 6th, 2020 as Flood Safety Awareness Week.
This proclamation is intended to raise awareness of the importance of preparing for and understanding flooding in Kansas. Wendy Lee, Community Development Director, will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Crowley will read the proclamation.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Flood Safety Awareness Week is an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for and understanding flooding in Kansas, and to encourage all citizens to better prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for the upcoming flood season. And whereas the Kansas Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies flooding as one of the costliest types of natural disaster in Kansas in terms of lives lost, injuries, and property damage. And whereas floods threaten people, homes, and other property in every county in Kansas. And whereas floods can happen anytime, anywhere, and without warning. And whereas damage from a flood is not normally covered under a standard homeowner's insurance policy. And whereas summer and fall flooding from 2016 to 2018 had 2 flood-related deaths in Kansas, and there was widespread flooding in 2019 across the state. And whereas the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service will initiate Severe Weather Awareness Week on March 2nd, and whereas the Secretary of the Kansas Department of Agriculture, the Kansas Insurance Commissioner, and the Kansas Adjutant General all believe awareness of the dangers and costs of flooding are important to all citizens of Kansas. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim March 2nd through the 6th, 2020 as Flood Safety Awareness Week in Ottawa, Kansas, and urges all citizens to recognize this observance. Signed this 4th day of March 2020 by our Mayor, Tom Wygon.
Wendy Lee, Community Development Director, will accept the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, for the proclamation. As most of you know, in the community, we do have the fortune of being next to the river, but along with that comes the misfortune in some seasons. And in the last few years, we've seen a lot more of that than we do at some times. But we want to be a part of what the state is doing to bring awareness to flooding. We participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. We've held programs trying to educate the citizens a little bit more about what they can do to be ready for emergencies of any kind, but certainly around flooding, and for those neighborhoods that experience that, to understand a little bit more about that. It's both efforts in our department through planning when we're working in those areas, as well as the efforts that the Public Works Department in particular has relative to the river, and their work also with the Division of Agriculture, who is the agency that we work with at the state. Sarah Antichek is our floodplain administrator. She couldn't be here tonight, but really most of the work that goes on with trying to be compliant is within her responsibility, and she has gone through a number of trainings and testing as well. She's working on her certification, as it happens, in this area, but we certainly thank all of those who help when we have those kinds of experiences, and if there are members of the community who want to know more about where the flooding areas are in our community or what they can do to be prepared, we're happy to answer those questions.
Thank you very much. Item 12.
Request to rezone property at 2760 Kingman Road from A Agricultural District to I2 PPD-O Heavy Industrial Proximity Park Development Overlay District.
Wendy Lee will have comments. The property owner, Joe Marney, has requested a rezone of the property with intent to build a concrete plant. Wendy?
So the Planning Commission held a hearing after the applicant, Joe Marney, requested this consideration. The actual owners also signed it. The purchase of the property is somewhat contingent on receiving approvals for the various steps that the applicant needs to go through in order to do what they hope to do on this parcel. It's a parcel of about 15 acres south of Kingman Road. And it's east of US 59, but west of Montana. So it is generally south and west of Proximity Park. As all of you know, the Proximity Park is zoned I2 PPD-O, which is what the proposal is here. When we held the hearing, the applicant made a presentation. In addition to that, Mr. Fogel had some comments, and we've been through this with you during study sessions. In addition to that, Mr. Fogel submitted a protest petition. However, it was insufficient to warrant you to have a special vote count. So this is a fairly straightforward rezone from that perspective. After the Planning Commission listened to both sides and then asked some additional questions about the other areas already zoned this way, we discussed that the master plan for this area that was developed with those property owners indicated that heavy industrial use was going to be in this area. They recommended to you that this rezone be passed. Their recommendation was a 7-0 recommendation. And we went through the findings that night, as well as all the various factors that are required. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and then the applicant is here too if you have any questions for him.
I have one question. Mr. Fogel's concern seemed to be about water runoff from after the pavement of this property. Is there plans for any detention of water as we do sometimes in
So
areas?
Mr. Fogel did bring up several concerns that are really about the development of the parcel, not so much the rezoning itself. And because we're not to that stage yet, we can't fully answer it. We do have a
Site plan.
fairly thorough site plan process in which we will certainly be considering the effects of any runoff that would be experienced. The applicant maintained several times that there wouldn't be dust, although that was another one of the concerns Mr. Fogel raised, and that would also be something that we would continue to work through. As we told you in study session, and certainly as the applicant told us that night in the hearing, they have other facilities that they consider the state-of-the-art facility that they would be using as a guide to this one, and we may take a visit, some of us, just to feel like we've done our diligence with that. But that's really not the stage yet. So yes, we will be looking at it, but just not
That's a
at
little
this
further
point.
down the line.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion. We approve item number 12 on our agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just want to further say I want to thank Mr. Marty for his investment in our community, too. This is a great project, and we're looking forward to seeing what it'll look like.
Hope you sell a lot of concrete out there. With the motion and second, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Wygand?
And I vote yes, too. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Item 13,
2020 Street Improvement and Rehabilitation Plan.
Michael, hopefully we'll have some comments on lists of the streets identified for mill and overlay in 2020.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have in front of you is the list of streets that we plan to rehabilitate this year. You'll see that our estimated cost on this, on these projects is $295,000, a little over $295,000. Of that, we had $250,000 this year budgeted, but if you remember correctly, a couple of weeks ago, you approved to participate in the Federal Funds Exchange Program, which that program allows us $237,000 back for street rehabilitation. The balance of what's left is, I'm sure everybody's driven around town, they've seen the potholes that the numerous potholes that we've had to replace. We've got some that need some more extensive repair than what we've been able to do thus far this year. And I'd like to take the remainder of that balance to do those type of extensive repairs. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is approve the list of streets for rehabilitation.
We've seen the list for the viewing and listening public. Would you name the streets? And then they'll also be on our website. And
Absolutely, absolutely. The streets for mill and overlay are 15th Street from Main to Hickory, 2nd Street which is West 2nd Street, from Maple to Cypress, and then North Cherry is going to be a 5-inch overlay from approximately Grant Street to North Street. That stretch of street, if you remember correctly, we did chip seal on it. It didn't hold, so our intent is to put a 5-inch overlay to help hold that street and
That's in
help
front of
reduce
Lincoln School.
dust and all that. So, and provide an improved street in that area. And the last street is South Cedar, the 800 block of South Cedar. This is not only a mill and overlay, this is also a curb replacement in that block. Our plan is to, as everybody well knows, there's nothing left of the curb from 8th Street South. So our plan is to go in and replace the entire curb from 8th to 9th Street, as well as any driveways that are affected by that curb replacement, and then do a 2 to 3 inch mill and overlay on that street.
thank you. Mike, any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the list as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Mayor Wygand?
And I vote yes, too. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Item 14,
Request for approval of resolution supporting workplace lactation support policy. And I think I'm going to start on this one, so if you'll give me just a second to get to the podium.
comment, staff recommends approval to implement the policy, which includes a period of 4 weeks paid maternity/paternity leave for parents employed by the city. Amy?
We've seen this at 2 study sessions, so I'm going to kind of recap some of the highlights that we talked about in the policy. First of all, the city has been informally practicing workplace lactation support for our employees for several years. Many of our facilities have had nursing mothers, and they have created a space. What we're doing with this policy is just making it a little bit more formal, so we have designated rooms at each facility, and then as that need comes up, we will be able to add that. The policy's written that the list of designated spaces would be maintained with HR so that any employee at any time, without having to change a policy, we can amend that list, add to it. We worked with Franklin County, and then the Brenda Bandy from the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition came and has also done some walkthroughs. They've reviewed our policy. We used a team of city employees that were either new mothers, were currently nursing in some of our facilities to give us feedback on the things that were important to them. Some of their feedback included having armrests on the chairs. That's not something I would have thought of to add in there, but being comfortable, having storage space, those were some of the feedback that they gave. We did discuss in study session there, we've allowed a little bit of flexibility for each employee and their supervisor, so there's time built in if travel's needed. If we have a facility that we aren't able to create a designated space for, that employee with HR and their supervisor can arrange to travel to another city facility or a partner that would allow that. We've also allowed if someone wanted to have their caregiver bring the baby to them to feed, those types of things. The last part of the resolution authorizes or asks to authorize the city manager to implement parental leave, 4 weeks paid parental leave to complement our existing leave policies. And we've discussed that includes for both mothers and fathers, the birth of a child, the adoption of a child, or foster care is also, placement of a foster child is also covered in our leave policy, and that follows FMLA. So this would be it is not drafted yet, and you don't see that policy here, but it would complement our leave policy that we have and be included in our employee policy manual. And I would be happy to answer any questions if I missed anything.
Were you going to speak on anything? If not, I do recall we had the lady representing Kansas in the in this adoption of these kinds of workplace lactation
Yes, Brenda
support
Bandy.
policies, and she did say that we would be one of 6 cities in
Yes.
the entire state that have adopted a policy towards that, and I think that's kind of cool.
I do too.
Any questions in regard to this policy we're about to vote on?
If we need a motion, I move that we approve item number 14.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley,
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Yes.
Mayor Weigand.
And I vote yes, too. Motion carries. Thank you very
Commissioners,
much.
I want to personally thank you. I think as I told you the first time that we brought this to you, I have a bias. And I have 2 daughters and I have a wife, and they all breastfed their children, so I've seen 40 years of how workplaces don't support. Anytime I ever had an opportunity, I made sure that the workplace I was in supported young mothers and supported young fathers, because it is important to send a signal to our employees and people we want to be our employees that we are family friendly. And this is one of the ways we can do that. So I thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate your remarks. Item 15,
Ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Municipal Code.
The amendment adds Article 1 as administration of the construction codes, and Terry Elmer and Wendy Lee will speak to this. We have a number of these codes, and we've covered most of them, if not all of them, pretty thoroughly in study sessions, so just remind us of what we're doing here.
We're going to give you just a little overview. There are 10 separate ordinances for your consideration tonight. And that's what's required really by law for you to do them individually. However, we have reviewed and done this really as a collection. The International Codes Council recommends every 3 years a set of code standards. We tend here in Ottawa to review them every other year, every other edition, look to adopt. So first, Terry, our Chief Building Official, began reviewing the codes and considering both the 2012 that we have currently adopted as well as the 2015, because it was the code that was in between, that sometimes there can be changes in between that aren't caught unless you do a review, as well as the proposed 2018 codes. Terry then took those codes to the Construction Board of Appeals, and they had a discussion about each of the codes and the proposed changes, both in language, which you have here, as well as what the codes themselves might require in changes in the field. And they had a good discussion about that at that time, including the fire code, which isn't on the agenda tonight, but would be on our agenda in 2 weeks. Following that, we've sent out to all of our licensed contractors drafts of the proposed ordinances and changes, and invited them to come to a meeting here at City Hall, held late one afternoon so that it was somewhat convenient for their work schedule, where Terry did a PowerPoint presentation with them about a lot of the specific code language, not so much the adoption ordinances, but the actual changes, and discussed the things that would be happening in the field, and alerted them that we would begin really in January, as they did inspections out there, he and Mike, talking to them about any changes that they would be expected to comply with following adoption. And then we put it on your agenda. One of the things that I'm up here for more is to, one, thank Terry as well as Mike and those folks that participated with us for their work on developing the codes. But I also wanted to let you know that this is probably, for me, this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've done this in my tenure. And this time I just kind of wanted to simplify it a little bit. So I worked with our city attorney and our clerk to try and figure out some ways that we could make the code adoption process a little cleaner. And one of the ways we did that was adopting Article 1, which is what was addressed here at the beginning, where we put some of the language that was repetitive in every single one of those ordinances just in that first article. That way, if there was a change made, it could be made there, and we wouldn't worry about having errors. When we were thoroughly looking through this, we found a slight variation in a paragraph here or there, and it just leads to the possibility at some point that you could have errors and not be aware that you have conflicts. And so we worked hard to try and make that a bit more transparent. And then Terry's here to talk to you about any specifics that you might want to hear about for the codes themselves.
Questions?
Just to start off with, Terry, why don't you tell us what is the purpose of codes, and can you tell us examples or when codes are violated or non-existent in some communities?
The ultimate goal is to create a good building standard, and also for the life safety of the personnel and people that are in the various buildings, whether it's a residential house or a commercial building. We want everybody to have an opportunity to get out of the building, not get out in case of an emergency situation. So it's trying to implement something that everybody can be safe. We're out there looking for the welfare of the public. I mean, it's not for us to be implementing anything other than something's going to be more of a life safety for the general public or any occupants of the structures.
Okay, well said. I'm just reminded, some of us are old enough to remember the Hyatt Regency tragedy in Kansas City, and there was a code issue there and it caused a lot of deaths of many people. And so I think when you say about the safety and security of people, that is the utmost importance of a code. And I've visited foreign countries where there are no codes, and we've seen buildings collapse and many people die there too. So I just want to emphasize the importance of codes and why we have them here.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a suggestion here. There's 10 items, and we do have to go through each of the 10 items, but instead of calling the roll, if we could vote on these by acclamation, and if there's a dissenting vote, then we could call a division at that time.
You read my mind, because what we need to do is go through these. We've talked about them all, and if there's any particular one you want to make a decision on, but I would think we would, unless there's one that one of the commissioners would want pulled out of the vote, we'll vote on them all to be combined.
Actually, we had to vote on them individually, Mr. Mayor.
Each one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But instead of a roll call, if we can do
Separate motion for each
separate
one.
vote.
Okay. So, any questions on what's just been presented? I would entertain that motion. And I haven't made that motion, right?
Right, I'll make the first motion.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 15 by acclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item 15 is passed. Item 16.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 2 of Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Kaler.
I move that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 17.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 3 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I'll make the motion to approve item 17 on our agenda.
is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item 18.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 4 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 18.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 19.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 5 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Crowley.
for full disclosure on this one, since this is the National Electrical Code, I just want to say that obviously it affects me just as it would every other electrician in this city, so I didn't feel like I needed to declare that earlier in our meeting. And that being said, I will make the motion to approve item 19.
We accept your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to comment on that, too. I appreciate Commissioner Crowley being an electrician and look through this, and his comments on Monday helped convince me to move forward with this, because there were some things that actually eased up on some of the restrictions, I understand, and reduced some cost. And as far as that, you might address that on this issue there?
There's a few changes that are being made. Arc fault breakers, which will save the public a significant amount of money if they were ever to do a new service, upgrade their service, or build a new house. Another one that I think is really important is the removal of the tamper-resistant receptacles. If anybody's familiar with them, it's extremely difficult to plug something in. I was actually having some difficulty the other day trying to plug something into it. So, if you start to lose some of that dexterity in your hands, it's really difficult to get that in there. So, it is a good thing, because as we were younger, we used to like to think that it was nice to shove something into those receptacles. So it served a purpose, but I think maybe in the future they'll find something a little better to replace that with.
And that's what I appreciate about our staff reaching out to the contractors in our community and getting their input as well as update on this. And it just shows you how closely we work together with them to make life better for the both of us, actually. So I appreciate that effort, too, and I appreciate what Commissioner Crowley had to say there.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Oh, I think I
Where
second
did it
that.
go?
You've said it.
I second that.
Just seconded it. Any discussion? Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 19 carried. Item 20.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 6 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 6.
Second.
Has been moved, motion made and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 20 carries. Item 21.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 7 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the sewage disposal code. I was looking forward to this one.
All
night long. I'll second
Second that
just
one.
in pure excitement.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of is it 20? I marked it.
21.
Oh, 21. Say aye.
Aye.
Say huh? All those opposed, same thing, motion carries. Item 22.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 8 of the Municipal Code.
Is there a
Mr. Mayor.
motion?
I move that we approve the ordinance as listed in item 22 on our agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed. Item 22 carries. Item 23.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 9 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Crowley,
I'll make the motion to approve item 23.
is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Item 23 carries. Item 24.
Ordinance amending Chapter 6, Article 10 of the Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the article, the ordinance as described in item 24.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
We should have, right? Shouldn't we have discussion? It's the last one and, no, okay, no. No, I don't need discussion.
Should say thank you very much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. We
is-
appreciate this. And as we've been expressing to our contractors, after they are published, after the notice is published, then these ordinances will be effective, and we will be working with our contractors and property owners to implement them
Okay.
as we kind of regroup with what
Very
those
good.
changes.
there's no ordinances on the number of ordinances you can approve. in the
Apparently
meeting.
not.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, like I said, Amy and I both agreed we should be able to do this in one. And we were told emphatically that we could
Gotta
not,
do it
but we did
individually.
try.
Okay.
And we will be back in 2
That is
weeks
fine.
with the
We got
fire
through
code,
that.
so.
Well, I want to say I appreciate all the work the staff put into this. I know it's pretty simple up here to prove these, but there's a lot of work behind that, and I read through the whole thing myself. It took me a couple evenings to do that, but there's a lot of work involved in that, so thank you all for making life easier for all of our citizens and streamlining some of these things.
Item 24, report by city manager. Do you have some?
Darn, you got to me sooner than what I thought you would. So, I want to take a few minutes to talk about COVID-19, some things that we're doing, and some things that I see as our responsibility as elected officials and appointed officials, as leaders in our community as we go through this national health concern. And it's not much different than 11 years ago when we went through the H1N1. At that time, we developed a pandemic policy to kind of deal with how do we help protect our employees, how do we help protect our citizens, how do we continue operations, how do we do a lot of things. And you'll see some more of that because I'll review that in detail with you in the next few weeks. But the important part of that is that it's an important part of planning by the city, by your staff, by the city manager, by all departments as you go through this. And what we hope is that nothing, you don't have to put those things into play, but it is better to have a good offensive game than to be on the defense. So what is our responsibility? Well, the first thing is that our responsibility is to help get the right information out. And I would tell you that that means when there are questions, we need to go to the experts. And the experts are the National Institute of Health, KDHE, Centers for Disease Control, Franklin County Health Department, our local medical community. I doubt very seriously if there's a social media site that gets all this correctly and knows how to do this. So what I recommend to the public and recommend to everybody is go talk to the experts. If you have questions, there are lots of websites you can communicate with the experts on this virus. And they are learning about this and they will have the right information. And we have spent a lot of time conversing with Midge Ransom, who is the best county health department director that I've worked with in 40 years. And she actually is putting together a meeting of a lot of the community partners next week, and we will have representatives there just kind of talking us through some of this. The best thing you can tell people is to practice good hygiene. You know, wash your hands and wash some more. If you're sick, stay home. If you're especially running a temperature and you're continued sick, call your health provider. Go see your health provider. Go have somebody look at you. So that's the best advice I can give. If somebody asks you a question and you don't know about it, refer them to an expert that does know about it. And I would tell you that I know we have communicated with Ottawa University, with Neosho County Community College. We've negotiated with USD 290 in the county, and I know that a number of those entities we've traded information have also reached out and contacted their students about how to deal with this situation on their campus. So I can't stress enough, misinformation just creates havoc. Misinformation is not helpful to anybody. So whether it's a member of the public or whether it's you or whether it is I, we need to make sure that we get people to the experts or that we're able to ask that question of somebody that knows what the answer is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number one, wash your hands and be aware. Reports by commissioners. Mike?
I have nothing.
Blake?
I guess on the payback area, I would like to acknowledge that it's the city manager's birthday tomorrow. His mother had the good sense, I think is the words that he said, to have a spring baby. And I think he talked about a story earlier that when 40 years ago when he was a young city manager, and I believe after graduating from high school, college, and grad school, that he was 28 at that time. So that kind of gives you an idea how old he is tomorrow. So
Don't do the math.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Thank you for your help, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
So everyone call you at 12:01 in the morning and wish you a
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Not if you want Rita to talk to you.
Commissioner Kaler?
I actually am going to take just a minute tonight, and I want to read, and I've given a copy of this to all my fellow commissioners, and so please pardon me for the time that I take, but I do have something that I want to discuss with the public and to discuss with some exciting stuff that's come about. I have a dear Aunt Sharon that lives in Colorado, and she occasionally, not as often as she used to, but will hand type me a letter, not a computer letter. She will type it on a typewriter and type me a letter. And I was pleased to get a letter from her yesterday. And within that letter was a article that she had sent from the Greeley, Colorado Tribune. And it was a story about Ottawa, Kansas. And this story actually ran, and it's not a story, it's a guest editorial from an individual who was a Vietnam vet, or is a Vietnam vet. And I'm going to read you the story, and then can I give you a few notes about it. But it starts out with the title of A Belated Letter from Vietnam. And it says, I wear my red t-shirt every Friday. Red stands for Remember Everyone Deployed. It's a reminder that somewhere, someone is standing on the wall saying, rest tonight, I'm here, no one will hurt you. In 1990, so 30 years ago, I wrote a belated thank you Valentine's column for the Denver Post. It was addressed to a girl from Girl Scout Brownie Troop 317 in Ottawa, Kansas. It was 23 years late in the sending. I was in Vietnam in 1967 serving with my company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines near DMZ. Mail from home was important to us, sometimes all that kept hope alive. The world was not liking us much then. It was February. Mail call, someone shouted. Faces would light up or turn stoic. Stares or turn into stoic stares depending on whether or not there was a letter from a spouse, real or imagined girlfriend, parents, or anyone. In the sack, too, were dozens of handcrafted Valentine's cards addressed to a Marine in Vietnam. We all got one. Most guys just said, well, that's nice, and then set them aside. There was a maker's name on each card, and I decided I was going to write that child, thanking her. Ray Ludwig, my best buddy, who we spent almost every day together for 2 years, laughed. Tom's got to get home quick. He's writing to 8-year-old girls. He wrote to his girlfriend. That was it, I thought, until another mail call 6 weeks later. Romero, there's a big package for you. I opened it to find 48, yes, 4 dozen boxes of brownie cookies, Girl Scout cookies. There was also a handwritten note. I wrote once more, and then in turn she wrote me the sweetest letter on Big Chief tablet paper only a child could write with such pure, unregarded tenderness. Please tell me when you get home, she said. I don't ever want to wonder what happened to you. I don't want to know if you died or you were hurt. Please let me know. I double wrapped that letter in plastic and treated it like it was a map to the lost gold mine, but I never honored her request. When it was time to leave, it was in the middle of a firefight. They forced me to get on a helicopter and agonizingly abandon not only my men, but my gear with her letter too. Within a week, I was home, and in the face of difficult readjustment, trying to get on with life. I never wrote that girl from Brownie Troop 317. And years later, during Desert Storm, my sister's grandson, Michael, told her his grade school class had adopted her son, Mark, who was deployed in Iraq. He said that they would send him care packages and such. Well, I remembered my broken pledge, and I wrote an open letter of apology to that no longer child. I asked her to forgive me and told her how important her small, kind act of love had been to me. The letter never found its way to her. Sadly, there was no hallmark ending. Today, American women and men are still deployed around the world. Many of them are in harm's way. Women, mothers, wives, and daughters are now in the battlefield. As leaders, medics, in helicopters and jet planes, they get to do brave things, get wounded, and die. I never got a yellow ribbon parade, and that's okay. If this letter moves you, remember everyone deployed. Not with show business, 100-foot flags at NFL games. Remember, he's from the Denver area. But with a personal act of kindness. The way that the Girl Scout Brownie Troop 317 did for me. And it was signed Thomas Romero, who is a Greeley resident of Greeley, Colorado, and a former Greeley City Councilman, much like us. So this thank you was 50 years in the making. And, some things stay with us for such a small moment of time, but some things stay with us for a lifetime. And in the years right now, when we're in civil discourse every single day, it is important to remember that kindness counts every single time. And you never know where it's going to go. I actually reached out to Mr. Romero last night, and he was shocked, I think, when I explained who I was. And I think he was surprised what a small world it was. I received a text back from him after we had conversed several different times, and I told him I was going to read this letter tonight. And he says to me, "Thank you for this healing phone call, and thank you for the closure." And I thank him for the service. But you know what I also thank for? I think for every single time you do something kind, it comes back to you in dividends. So if there are individuals out there, or, you have somebody who you know was a Girl Scout and who'd be about 60 years old right now, and may have been a member of Troop 317, have them reach out to me. I'd love to connect them with this individual. He is so grateful still today, 50 years later. So it's a good story, it's a good connection, and something to certainly be happy about.
That's very touching. I'm glad you brought that in. That's a neat story, and very relevant to today. Commissioner Crowley, can you top that?
Cannot.
Sorry.
Pressure.
And I have no further comments also, so if there's nothing further to come, I'll read the announcements. The National League of March 8th through the 11th, I think Commissioner Crowley and City Manager are attending the Congressional City Conference, Washington, D.C.
Commissioner Kaler.
Commissioner Kaler and City Manager are attending the Congressional City Conference in Washington, D.C. March 9th, our Monday study session has been canceled. March 16th, we do have a study session at 4 p.m. here in City Hall. March 16th is our next regular meeting at 10 a.m. in the City Hall. And then March 18th, we have a joint city-county USD luncheon, and that'll be hosted at the Franklin County Annex. There's nothing more. I noticed there's some students in the office, in the room tonight, here to make sure we're doing things according to oil and everything. Well, where are you representing? Is where? I'm sorry? No.
As soon as they move to Ottawa, they're going to be taking our seats. So,
Absolutely. Hopefully someday you are involved in local, or if not national or state politics. So it's great to have you here. Come often, please. With nothing more to come before this meeting, I will adjourn this meeting at 8 o'clock.